This upcoming concert season will be all about the boots, and Tecovas is your stop for the best in Western style. Tecovas has seasonal and limited edition offerings this spring and summer, including men's and women's boots, apparel, hats, bags, and more. All Tecovas boots are made by hand in a time-honored tradition with timeless styles that are always on trend. And Tecovas has first wear comfort with little to no break-in period. It's hard to find this level of comfort paired with this level of style. Stop by your local Tecovas store, have a complimentary drink or two, that's WCB style, and shop new styles. The smell of fresh leather and friendly staff are at your service. Many stores even have leather custom branding to make your boots truly personalized. And with regular live music and events, there's no in-store experience like it. If you can't make it into a store, just visit tecovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com. They offer free shipping on all boots, as well as free returns and exchanges, and ship right to your door. Go to tecovas.com and find your new favorite pair of boots today.
Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year,
Panarin!
part of the past. The celebrations, forgotten. The history,
Vegas Golden Knights!
history. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast with Kevin and Chuck. Today we're going to talk about hand-to-hand combat. Kevin, you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm ready to get started.
All right. So what are you bringing to the table? Hand-to-hand combat, what are you thinking?
Well, hand-to-hand combat, I mean, that's kind of a pretty big, broad subject. And,
yes, it is.
You know, we're not going to be able to teach people how to do jiu-jitsu over a podcast.
No,
you know?
I don't think we are. And that's, I was thinking today, I mean, my thought was, we'll talk a little bit about some basic techniques, things that are obvious and straightforward in your head when we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Some moves that might get you through in a pinch. And, you know, I think just having a plan of attack, having a thought process will do a lot for you.
Yeah.
And then actually I was hoping in the future we're going to do a more advanced hand-to-hand combat episode. And not that it's got more stuff. I just, in the future, I want to talk about some more detailed maneuvers that might be a little more complicated, a little more practicing, you know, where you got to do the move over and over.
Right.
And then you get to where you want to be, as opposed to today, I just want you to kind of think, hey, if I do this, I can, you know, whatever. And hopefully if that comes to mind, it'll, you know, clue you into the right thing.
Right.
So what are you thinking?
Well, I think, you know, there's a lot of things that are, you know, you got to think of first, you know, prior to when you get into the fist fight.
All right.
You know, I mean, obviously, if you're getting into a hand-to-hand combat,
yes,
you've made a mistake. You know, you shouldn't be, you know, somebody gets in your face and gets ready to go, getting wound up, you know, hand-to-hand, that's stupid. It ought to be hand-to-brick, you know?
Hand-to-brick?
There's nothing fair about fighting.
Hand-to-rock?
Right.
All right.
Get something. But,
hand-to-crowbar?
Uh-huh.
All right.
Uh-huh. Now, how do you know, though, when somebody's ready to go? There are a couple of telltale signs.
Let me, before you get there, I like where you're going. I'm excited. I want to hear it. But let me tell you, one thing you said, one of the things I was thinking about today is everybody says, oh, if you're already in the fight, that means you lost because you made bad choices that got there. I think I even repeated them on this podcast.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I was like, who are these people? Bunch of pussies? Whatever. It doesn't mean... I don't think we need to completely avoid everything. Mm-hmm. Now, I do know that you need to be aware. I see people get out of their car and go up to the car behind them that just tapped their bumper, and they're all hot and heavy. What the hell, you asshole? Now that I would avoid it. I would recommend against because you really never know if they're a freaking psycho or whatever. Who's going to just
carry
say,
guns. People don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what they've got in their car.
Right.
You need to be aware of your situations.
That said, doesn't mean that you need to completely cow down to everything either. Mm-hmm. And, I wanted to put that on the table. Uh-huh. But you're saying, so you come across this guy and you guys, you start having the argument, you're yelling. Now you're saying there's some clues that might tip me off when he's ready.
Yeah. A lot of people think, when you see people's faces get red, that they're getting angry. That's not really the situation. Their blood is rushing to their skin. They're getting flushed.
Yes.
But when their faces go white, that's when the adrenaline's kicking in.
Okay.
And the blood is rushing to their muscles, and that's when they're getting ready to go.
That's when it's going to hit.
People, pick it up, start swearing, screaming, talking in monosyllabic, words and sentences. That's that's kind of what you want to watch out for.
Okay.
Because you don't want to be the guy that gets into an argument and just starts beating on somebody. No. You don't want to be somebody that starts the fist fight.
No.
But you don't want to be the first person to get hit either.
That is true.
I
think you want to be alert and ready to dodge,
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, we all watched The Sopranos and like that, or I assume everybody's watched The Sopranos. I don't know. My world, everybody has. But, and that's the thing is they always, totally got people by surprise. And that's what always, because you have somebody all out of shape and whatever, Big T there. But... you see how it would work because people are totally off guard.
Right. They don't expect to just randomly get sucked. But
there's one episode, and I don't even remember exactly. I think it was one of the first ones with Chrissy Moltisanti there. And he was doing work, and I don't even remember. It could have even been his kid. Man, it's been a long time since I've watched The Sopranos. Mm-hmm. But... anyway, they're sitting doing union work, and they're sitting under a bridge, all talking, a bunch of union guys, and somebody offended somebody else and whatever, and he's like, and he realized, and everybody kind of looks, oh, dude, you just
that was
you just
too far.
stepped in it when you said that, and the guy's like, oh, no, don't worry about it, man. We're cool, whatever. And then 2 seconds later, just smashes a bottle in his face.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, geez,
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, 90%, I would say 98% are not going to see that coming. Mm-hmm. And, man, after you just had a bottle smashed across your face.
That's it. That
you're
fight's
not
over.
Really,
yeah, that's, Yeah.
Now, again, in the world with laws and civil order, maybe that's not the best way to, finish an argument. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, maybe you don't have the self-control. I don't know.
I think men have a certain sort of conflict resolution.
Okay.
That, civilized people and women don't seem to have. You know what I mean? I say civilized people and women, but I mean, you know what I'm talking about. If you get into a heated argument, with a friend of yours, and you get into a fist fight, then the argument's over afterwards.
All right.
You go drink a beer together.
All right.
But, women will drag that argument out with her girlfriend for months.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. Fisticuffs there usually do settle the topic. Mm-hmm. Usually it doesn't come up again after it ends in blows, Mm-hmm. But, all right. So, all right, these things tend to build. I think one of the examples that come to mind mean, I definitely did some roughhousing in high school. It's weird. A lot of people people I never even knew wanted to fight me, and I don't understand that. And
you're just a boy people
they
love
just
to
want to
hate.
hit. I think it started with my grandmother, actually. Now that I mention it. I think I was about 10 years old, maybe 9, and my grandmother looks at me and goes, every time I look at you, I want to hit you as hard as I can. And I'm like, damn, I must really be an asshole. But maybe, I don't know, maybe she had some rage issues, who knows.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. So then I get to high school, and again, the same thing. I was one of those, like, long-haired metalhead, kids, and there were always, some gang of thugs that, just wanted to freaking mess with us. But even more than that, it would be, some kid would be like, well, you're not really a better guitar player than me. I'm cooler than you and whatever. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm a crappy guitar player. Nobody's running my mouth that, I'm the king of the world. Mm-hmm. I just walked around with confidence, I think, and that always pissed people off,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I practice guitar like a half hour a week.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance you're better than me if you give any effort at all, And I'm like, and who are you? And I don't even know you, and what are you talking about? But it was always like stuff like this. Anyway, moving on, it would always end up, you'd go down to, at our school, it was like at the bus turnaround or, whatever. And people would be like, oh, just walk up and, like haymaker and just freaking blast you in the side of the head. Somehow in high school, I think everybody always wanted to punch you in the ear. I don't know. I just have some bad memories. I don't know. Maybe it's all been blocked out since then. But then, like, when you were talking about people getting white in the face and just getting angry, I had that play out with me where I was sitting at home. I'm sitting on the couch watching NASCAR, I don't know, whatever, and I'm drinking a beer. I'm all relaxed, whatever, happy, everything's good in the world. I get the landlord knock on the door. Now, mind you, it's my house, so no landlord's coming. But, you get that loud bang, 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 bang. And so I'm like, all right, what's up? And I open the door, and it's one of the neighbor kids' dad. And and it's funny now because I'm 41 and I'm the old guy. But he's, probably 45. But he's like, and I'm probably, 25 at the time. But he's that middle-aged, dorky, whatever, maybe think IBM or, whatever. Just like, he's the guy that comes to mind when I say these things,
the
right?
IT guy.
Right. He's not somebody you would really fear, But he's like, what the hell is wrong with my kids? Why won't your kids play with my kids? And I'm like, who are you and who are your kids? I have no idea. I've never met you. I don't... Well, my kids, I don't even know their names, Zach or whatever and whatever. Not anybody who's ever played in my house or whatever. I don't know. And he's just nonstop. And he just keeps, right in my face, waving his finger. And this isn't right. What the hell was wrong with your kids? Whatever. Because I guess, I don't know. My kids just didn't want to play with him because he always had, rules or whatever coming from mom and dad or some stupid nonsense. I don't even know.
Right.
But I was like, I could destroy this guy. I'm not even worried about it. So I just kept stepping towards him. And, the more he's going, and I keep moving, and he just kept backing up. And eventually we're at the end of the driveway. We're almost out in the street now. And I'm like, and I'm just, all that's going through my head is, God, I don't want all my neighbors to see me at blows with this clown in the middle of the freaking, and eventually, but I just backed him right out of the yard, and then I just turned and went back in. I was like, yeah, I don't know, man, but I can tell you there's a good chance they're not going to play with your kids now. And it just, and he kind of realized, but if you kind of cow down and back up yourself, I think it could have ended, completely different. I think this guy would have, thought about going to blows. And it's
the last
crazy.
thing you want to do when you get in a confrontation like that is start walking backwards.
Yeah. No, it's like we talked about it in that Animal Attack. You know, they say, oh, play naive for a minute.
Right.
But as soon as you see a wolf's ready to go, don't play naive. Be a scary motherfucker. You know, you want to be the scary guy that nobody's going to mess with. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think of a childhood fight?
Childhood comfort? No, I don't think I had a whole lot. I remember a couple of times, and you know, the real trick I always thought was to get that person down on the ground.
Yeah, ground and pound.
I remember one time. You know,
was there no pounding? Just
no. I mean, not at that age. When I was a kid, I remember I was shorter than a lot of the kids in my school, and I remember a tall kid was messing with me, giving me a hard time, pushing me, and I jumped up on one of the desks and jumped off the desk like Jimmy Fly.
Jimmy Superflies.
And once I got him down on the ground, that was it, man.
Nice.
A couple of stomps and he was done.
Nice.
He gave up. You know, I'm not gonna at that age. I wasn't gonna stomp on somebody's head or anything.
No, and that's
a swift kick in the ribs, man.
What is it? American History X? Yeah, with the curb.
Oh man,
I have nightmares of that kind of brutality.
Yep.
And that's it. There's some crazy people, and you can't mess with crazy. Yeah. You know, I think Bruce
Never
Lee...
get into a fist fight with somebody that has less to lose than you do.
Exactly. Bruce Lee always said, he was like, you know, people were like, oh, you know, you're invincible, nobody could whatever. And he always said, you know, no matter what, if you get in a fight with somebody, if they're focused and they have one goal, like I think his exact words were, if somebody decides to break your arm, and that's their mission, all they're worried about in that fight, they're going to break your arm.
Right.
And, you know, same thing. If somebody's going to shoot you, you're not going to stop them from shooting you. Obviously, exceptions, you might get lucky, whatever. But determined and focus goes a long way.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's something ingrained naturally in all of us where men just like to test their mettle. I mean,
right.
I don't know this newer, it seems more and more, even a gradual transition over the last 50 years that kind of, we try and push out the natural instincts of man. But, you know, boys are boys. They like to fight. They like to test themselves. You know, every culture throughout time has always had some kind of, you know, rite of passage into manhood. And, you know, we get more and more away from that. But, you know, they'd always, you know, the Indians send them out to stay on their own for a night or a week. You know, you see these stories.
Right,
or,
the rite of passage.
Or they go kill a wolf or you do whatever, you know. Even, you know, and then it got to be maybe the first hunting trip with Dad. You went and killed a deer, you know. There's always some level of accomplishment that signifies
when you're a man.
Manhood.
Right.
And I know when I went to boot camp, they always had, they'd come and, you know, shut everything down and everybody'd hit their racks. And as soon as the drill sergeant, or in the Navy, it's, what is it?
It was drill sergeant.
Still, or drill instructor or whatever, same thing, right? So as soon as he'd take off, flip the lights back on, and we'd have like some kind of like ultimate fighting in the middle of the room. And honestly, they had to know. I think they just like to let, you know, men be men, you know? And so all of a sudden it'd be like UFC fighting, and it would be all organized and, all right. This guy's going to fight this guy, and we'd beat the crap. And what I always see, like, I know at least in that situation, all the kids who did like wrestling in high school would just dominate everybody else. You know, man, they'd wrap you up and get you in a move, and you're just, you know, they're holding you and you're choking out, and it's, I don't know.
Right.
So, like I know we talked about boxing in another episode, you know, it's, once you get into something, it's hard to, you know, once somebody has a skill and some training, all of a sudden they're dominating at least 60-70% of the population. And then you get any kind of minimally advanced, you know, your black belt in karate, whatever. I know I say minimally, but, you know, how many people do you know that go to karate for 4 years as a kid and then mysteriously they're a black belt? You're like, wait a minute, I'd destroy you.
Yeah, but a lot of people, you know, but all that sort of stuff, it gives you a big advantage. Any sort of training, any sort of practice.
Right. Well, I think, too, you have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
your body's been through the movements. Your body's going to all of a sudden act on instinct because you've put some thought and some effort into it. That's, we talked about in situational awareness about the whole born thing. And, it's just kind of your instinct because you've been over it. You've played out the scenarios.
Right.
Well, so where I was going to go with this whole boot camp fighting thing, you'd have certain things. We had this one guy who, once again, I just rub people the wrong way. I don't know what it is. I just do. And so I had this guy who's determined to fight me. But all the time, he's like, I know how to win a fight. I'm just going to freaking take my knee or my foot and blow out somebody's knee. I'm just going to kick them right in the kneecap and they're going to go down. Well, he must have told everybody this about 80 times. And so I'm like, the fuck, I'm going to break my knee in boot camp and, get sent back and, the nightmare that becomes. And, plus I don't want my knee messed up for the rest of my life. I mean,
because that's probably permanent damage.
Yeah. No, that's permanent damage. So, guy comes at me. Sure enough, I know what he's going to do because I can see his eyes. You can watch people.
Right.
And that's one of the things. I mean, I guess I'll start talking about some defensive strategy that if you watch people's eyes and watch people's shoulders, if you just watch, so you just keep your head in their face, you can tell what they're going to do. If they're lifting their leg to kick, if they're moving their arm to swing, if they're doing anything, you're going to see it by watching their shoulders being level.
Right.
You can kind of keep your head up and see what's coming at you and see it before it happens. And that's what's nice. Because people, unless they're a really trained fighter, that was one of the things that made Bruce Lee appear so fast was he didn't telegraph his movements. Because, he talks about that 1-inch punch. He shoots kind of from the waist and blasts people. But whereas your average fighter, me included, I drag my arm back and I go to swing.
Right. You got to cock it before you let it go.
And all of a sudden you see, all the movements. I'm telegraphing everything. Whereas Bruce Lee, his hands would be at a relaxed position in front of him. And he'd just come up and blast you. And that's why you're like, holy shit, that came out of nowhere.
Right.
Because your body's like, I didn't even see anything happen.
Yeah.
Like, I missed the whole first half. Well, it's because he's not doing the whole first half that, the average fighter is doing. So anyway, this guy's coming at me. I see him. Drop to my knees and freaking blast him right in the nuts with my fist. And you know what? That was the end of it. He didn't talk any more shit. And at first, I was like, I'm going to be the asshole for, hitting somebody in the nuts and whatever. But I was like, you know what? It's better than him because this dude hated me. It was going to end badly. And I figured I could nip it in the bud right there. And that was it. And it was funny. About a week later, on one of the fight nights, sure enough, somebody blew his knee out and he got set back 8 weeks.
Oh.
So I guess you don't want to run your mouth too much. Is maybe the lesson learned there.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what do you got?
Well, I mean, a lot of I see a lot of horror stories about people breaking their hands.
Yes.
Punching people.
They said when they switched to the boxing gloves that that was one of the big thing. They got the gloves because people kept breaking their hands.
Right.
But they're saying it's kind of a twist of good and bad with that because now with the gloves they can actually hit harder.
Right. They're more concussions now.
Right, because they can blast you with the glove. They can bring more force.
You can rattle your brain,
right.
By hitting somebody in the forehead. If you punch somebody in the forehead with your bare knuckles, you're going to do more damage to your hand than you are to their forehead.
Yeah.
If you're going to punch somebody, aim for the mouth and the nose, the soft spots.
I didn't realize that was such a big thing, and I watched some old shows, documentaries on boxing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know a couple of people were talking about the MMA taking the gloves away.
Oh.
And they said they can't really do it because it's going to bring more people are going to be like, oh, it's such a brutal sport. But in the long run, it's going to be, less harm to the actual...
Right, but it's how it looks. It's really how we make decisions in America.
People view MMA as a very brutal sport.
Yes.
But the truth is, if you took the gloves off, I think there'd be a lot less permanent damage.
Yes.
with
I think that's right. You know, it's a little bloodier, it looks a little messier, but less, physical trauma and less head trauma. You know, all this worry about concussions and nonsense anymore.
That's a big deal. I mean, we're starting to realize how much concussions,
long-term
damage. Right. I mean, look at Muhammad Ali. You know, he did that rope-a-dope fight and, just kept his gloves up. But, I mean, he was getting knocked in the head repeatedly.
Yes.
And, I if I had to guess, I'd say that was the fight that caused his, his long-term effects. Yes. He won the fight, though.
Hey, Price is right. So, all right. So, all right, now we've kind of talked about how we get into the fights and what kind of happens and whatever.
Right.
But, seriously, if you're going to fight with somebody, you should be in it to win it.
Right.
You got to make a decision.
Right. And I'd say that, the three major factors in a fight is one, the strongest person.
Yes.
Two, the person with the longest reach. If they can hit you before you can reach them. But the most deciding factor is somebody that's willing to put you in the hospital.
Yes.
And if you're not willing to do that, you shouldn't be in the fight.
I'm with you. And they were talking, we mentioned in the past, stamina is another huge factor with, staying power. And can you take the beating? Are you going to, it's not just that your heart and whatever can keep going, that you're, but also, are you going to get back up after that head blow? What are you used to? So, anyway, suppose somebody, comes at you in the dark alley and they jump you. Well, at that point, I think all bets are off, you know? Guy's ready to rob you. You have your wife, girlfriend, sister, mother, whatever with you. You need to make sure this guy isn't going to be able to do damage to people we care about.
Right.
And I guess that's really, what we're talking about. Now, one of the things, people are really afraid of the brutal things. You really need, you've been conditioned. You don't hit people in the nuts. You don't, gouge somebody's eye out with your thumb.
Right.
But maybe that's not the case.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, one of the things, people always, it's weird. You make a decision in your head to kind of not really do damage. And it's weird. I talked about when, how, the wrestlers always seem to be able to get on you. And I'm a big guy, and I've always been a big guy, and I can bring some force when I go to hit somebody. And all the guys used to have all these wrestling moves, and they'd grab me and pin me to the ground and whatever. And then I could always kind of muscle my way out of it, but it would take 10 seconds. And it would be annoying, and they embarrass me, always holding me, and, whatever, I can't get up. So it gets to the point where you're like, all right, enough's enough. But the thing is, I don't want to hurt somebody. Right. And when I bring massive force, somebody's going to get hurt.
Right.
And that's the problem. And I know towards the end of like a 6-month deployment, the standing watch with one of my good buddies, actually, who I really love and is a great guy.
Yeah, that end of that 6-month deployment tells me a lot, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's testerone.
You're a little short at that point. Right. You've been living on Mountain Dew for at least 4 of those 6 months. And it's about 2 a.m. and just constant nonstop grabbing me, fucking with me, and whatever. And it's always back and forth, but it just gets old, you know. And I'm like, really, you got to stop. And why? Whatever, So guy grabs me, and I'm just done with it. And it's just instinct, and I couldn't help it. And I just freaking blast him in the shin with the combat boots. And so he goes down, you start to lean forward. And that's one of the things. You hit anybody in the shin, stomp their heel on their foot, something like that. They're going to lean forward. I know this. And then I box his ears, and he's on the ground crying for... Now,
people underestimate how much that hurts.
Oh, yeah. And you know what, honestly, and I only did it about half the speed that you could have, because once again, you don't want to hurt somebody. I actually have regretted it forever. I feel bad. He ended up no serious, that I know of, long-term consequences. But just the same, I know, 2 years later, I see him at party or something and somebody's messing with me and he comes over and he's like, whoa, don't say anything to him. Just leave him alone. And I can tell, both of us kind of flash back to that moment, And, but that's the thing. I mean, you can really do damage. But if somebody's coming at you, boxing their ears is serious damage. But again, don't do it to somebody you care about because you could permanently...
Right. You can blow an eardrum out.
Blow an eardrum all day. Right. Very possible. Next thing, punch people in the throat. You have no idea. Everyone aims for the face, the head, the eye, the nose. You see it all the time. Don't mess around. You punch somebody right in the throat, they're going down and they're not getting up. Maybe ever. Yeah. They're not getting up for a long time, I can tell you that. And then at that point, you can dominate and control. I'm talking about life-threatening situations. I'm not talking about your, fisticuffs at the bar or whatever. Right. I'm talking about when somebody's pulling a knife on you and you're afraid they're going to be attacking your girl, or when you have the angry mob chasing your girlfriend when they're all the refugees we're not afraid of. And, that's a different story. That's when you end it. Right. And another, all right, maybe you don't want to go quite as bad as blasting them in the throat. Have you considered if you open your thumb, keep your hand flat together so it looks like an L when you hold it up, blast them right in the throat with that, you're not going to miss because you got that big hook on your hand. Blast them right in the throat, they're going right down. Now the cool thing, once again, people are predictable. You blast them in the throat, they're going to put their hands on their neck unless they're a really experienced fighter who's going to step back. But your average guy is going to lean forward a little and put his hands on his throat to grab for his neck. At that point, his groin, everything else is open. Right. Same thing. You knee somebody in the groin, everything else is open because their hands are going down there to protect. Another big thing that pays off, I know when I used to get in a lot of the fights when I was a kid, is the follow-through. So I'd swing at somebody, and say I miss, they dodge, they deflect. It's always followed by my elbow. And there's a good chance if I'm in a serious fight, not only is it followed by my elbow, but then my shoulder after that and my whole body on top of you. I'm not going to miss. I'm going to either blast you and connect, or I'm going to keep coming until you're laid out on the ground. And it doesn't matter you put your little arm up in front of me, because I'm coming like a freaking train. Right. And again, if you're a little, 100-pound guy, maybe that's not the best technique. Maybe you need to think about jabbing and getting away, or maybe you need to think about a weapon, or maybe you need to think about going and getting a sandwich. I don't know. I mean, that could be whatever you like. But
no, I know when I'm getting ready for a fight. Yes. Initially, you want to get your stance ready. Bent knees, balls of your toes, get your balance ready. Get your hands up in front of you, palms open.
I like it.
And that's going to be your barrier, you know what I mean? That's going to be your fence. And if you're in a straight fist fight, then, you can judge. They're going to start judging where they can reach. Right. And when they do that, that's when the counter-strike comes. And a counter-strike is a lot of things you talked about, but you also want to talk about, if you're really in a situation like that, all the things that you can bring to the table have to be there and ready to go. If it takes biting somebody's nose off, that might be the situation. Yeah. Headbutts to the face, if you can headbutt somebody in the nose or the teeth,
hook them in the mouth with your thumb, hook them in the eye. Yep. Like you said, pulling on the ears. I had this girl came up to me and, supposedly a friend, I don't know, and she was just messing around, came up and just grabbed her fingernails and grabbed the outside edges of my earlobes, or I guess, the back of your ear, the top half, whatever it is, but right on that thin edge, you dig your nails in there. It's a little sensitive, it turns out. And, stuff like that. There's a lot of, somebody who doesn't, that's actually, maybe I mentioned it, but one of the things I like is your back where your kidneys are, around there. Somebody who doesn't fight and doesn't like grapple. I mean, a guy who's going to, MMA training, and grappling and like that, his body's going to be a little tougher and worn in. Mm-hmm. But your average person, their body's sensitive in these spots that don't have human contact too much. And they're going to, they're going to feel it. You start grabbing and jabbing and they're going to know.
Right.
There's also the chin jab, where you take the palm of your hand and just thrust up, hit them in the chin. Their neck's going to knock back. They're going to fall over.
Right.
They also, I've seen it where you do like, say it's from my right side, take your right leg, kind of sweep under their legs and the chin jab. But I don't know if you can get in there. The chin jab works without the leg sweep.
Yeah. And really the way to win a fight is to get the other person on the ground.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. And, from there you can control a fight. You can control a person.
Now, I mean, again, all these moves we're talking about, the chin jab, you can break somebody's neck. You can cause neck pain, neck damage. They're wearing a collar for 6 months.
Right.
Who knows what? This is not something you're going to do. This is what you do when you're attacked.
Right. This is not roughhousing with your buddies.
Roughhousing with your buddies, exactly. And that's like I said, why I was so torn with my friends, because I'm like, it's got to stop. You got to lay down the force, but you don't, and it just, I don't know. I find it, you need to make a decision before you get in the fight. How am I going to approach it? What do I do? I talked to a martial arts instructor, and he was telling me, you need to, he goes, I teach all these different moves, all these different things. He goes, but you need to find 1 or 2 or 3 that work for you, and you need to become confident with them. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do. A fight isn't about 50 moves. I mean, it's awesome. If we all have, 4 hours a day to put into it, yes, any attack, we can learn the best response and train our bodies to do it. But if you can have 2 or 3 good defensive moves that match your body type, that you don't need the arm reach or the leg reach, or it utilizes your arm reach if you have great reach, these type of thing. But you need to have some certain moves that are your go-to. That I know, with confidence, something happens, I can do this. And the quick response. And that way, if you just train on those couple of moves over and over again, it'll be instinctive. And you won't have to worry about it. Instead of people who jump around and are from one thing to the next. And that's where you get into trouble. Because your mind is like, what do I do? And you're playing it out. Like I said, it's not a problem if you're Bruce Lee and you're training all the time, you're thinking about fighting all the time, then it's, no problem to have the awesomest move in response to whatever they do or, how they act or their size or whatever. But you definitely need some go-tos, some foresight, and kind of be aware of who's around you. That's, back to that situational awareness.
Right.
You never know when you're going to get blindsided or whatever. Learn to read the situation.
Right. That's a big part of it. Yeah. Staying out of the fight to begin with. Isolate your threats. Know when it's time to leave.
I hate to say it, but you don't do your family any good if you're in jail.
Right.
And, you can't really protect and take care of them if you're not there. So maybe, be a little cautious.
Yeah. No, I know that, my big thing with that whole sort of situation is there's nothing fair about fighting.
No.
And don't feel bad if you're doing something that don't be afraid to hit somebody in the nuts. Don't be afraid. I've been in a half a dozen fights, maybe more, and I can tell you I've hit somebody in the head with a crescent wrench. I've swatted somebody's knuckles with rebar.
Right.
I even shot somebody in the face with a fire extinguisher once. There's situations where you need to step up the game and escalate it faster than they are.
Right.
Because if they escalate it faster than you, that's when you're going to lose the fight and you're going to end up in some serious pain.
And some of these are maybe lose the fight and lose your life. That's at some point it comes to that. But a little planning now, a little foresight, maybe, go on the internet. You can learn a bunch of nonsense. But like I said, find a couple of moves that work for you and just learn that. Start there. If you have more time, you want to get more advanced, there's a website. They're not an affiliate, not anybody we get anything for. I wish we did. But called Fight Fast. And this guy's got like DVDs and whatever, but he's always plugging something where he's like, oh, I'll send you this for free. And then it's like $9.95 shipping. But 2 or 3 DVDs for $9.95, I'm in.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I've actually gotten a bunch of great ones. And he has this one, Brutal Fight Enders. And I got to tell you, when I made my trip to New Orleans, I was like, oh, let me brush up. And I went through, the 15 Brutal Fight Enders. And same thing, he just goes through and talks about things that you're like, holy crap, that's simple. I don't have to think twice, but it's going to devastate your opponent. But some of it is a little, beyond what is socially acceptable. But hey, fighting isn't socially acceptable. So maybe check it out. And, yeah. I don't know. That's about all I got. What do you got?
That's all I got.
That's it. We're kind of running out of time anyway, so we'll wrap this up. So the one thing I learned this week that I can tell you all is, no matter how bad the situation, where you are, the thing you can change is your attitude. And that's where you're in control. So keep that in mind. Until then, we will see you guys next week.
Good night.